From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. All right, the shutdown, as of this recording, is still under effect. Who knows how long it's going to go on. You and I haven't talked much about the shutdown. The only really important thing to say here is that in every other shutdown in history, and we've had plenty, there have always been negotiations between the parties. Before the shutdown, during the shutdown. This is the first time ever. That's what makes this one unique. There are absolutely zero negotiations before the shutdown. Months before the shutdown. Any legislation put forward by the Republicans was done entirely within their own caucus, and they invited zero opposition party input. They didn't ask for it. It's not in any of the legislation. It's not in their budget plan. It's not in the CR. There's nothing. There's nothing about what the Republicans are doing that has anything to do with representative government. They're the first Congress, to my knowledge, certainly in the modern history of the United States, maybe in all of history, to simply refuse to acknowledge the opposition party's right to participate in governing. Refuse to acknowledge that the opposition party has hundreds of millions of constituents who expect to be represented in Congress. So, of all the many things you can say about this shutdown, and there are many things you could say, this is the one thing I'm choosing to say. It's unique in the history of the nation. And to repeat what I did say a few weeks ago, again, the only thing I've really said about the shutdown so far, where is it written in the Constitution, or where is it written in basic logic that an opposition party has to vote for whatever the majority party puts on the table? Like it's their obligation. Where is that written? How does that make sense? Well, no, none of your ideas or provisions or amendments can be part of this legislation. And no, we won't even listen to you. And no, we won't even hold a meeting. But yes, you're expected to vote yes on whatever we put forward. You just have no choice. You have no voice. Your constituents, your hundreds of millions of constituents, have no voice in the matter. How does that make sense? How is that American? How is that fair? How is that anything? So, the shutdown continues. Representative-elect Aladita Grijalva, I think it's Aladita. Did I say her first name correctly? From Arizona. I want to make sure I'm not looking at any notes right now. I'm just relying on my memory. I think it's Arizona. Yeah, she's the daughter of the late Representative Grijalva, who passed away recently. And she was elected in her own right to represent her district. That was a couple of weeks ago. And MAGA Congress is refusing to swear her in. All right, that's interesting. Just refusing to do it. Keeping the House of Representatives literally shuttered just so they don't have to swear her in. Yeah, Speaker Mike Johnson is playing this little game where he'll open up a session for like 30 seconds, mumble some anachronistic, legalistic mumbo-jumbo, and then adjourn. Oh, okay, well, guess no time to swear you in today. All because she's the 218th signature on this stupid discharge petition over Jeffrey Epstein and releasing the Epstein files. And I won't go back over that, but honestly, I don't understand either side on this one. It's just a discharge petition, which forces a vote. And even if the vote is successful, which it could be because there are a few Republicans who want the files released as well, it still has to pass the Senate. It still has to be signed by the president. It's still a piece of legislation. So it's never going to happen. I honestly, tell me where I'm wrong. I feel like I'm in a twilight zone where everything around me is crazy. People keep talking about this as though as soon as she puts her name on this petition, then the files are released to the public. That's not true. That's not how it works. Yeah, we want to see the files. Yes, we want to see the client list if there is one. Yes, we want... I mean, who's going to write that down? He didn't write it down on paper. There's no copy of a client list. Look, I don't know anything. You know 10 times more about the Epstein files than I do. I'm not really following the story. But I know enough to know that a pedophile blackmailer doesn't keep real precise records. So whatever was sitting on Pam Bondi's desk, I don't know what, but it wasn't a client list. Who's going to keep a list? Oh yeah, I'm a criminal. I'm a pedophile, and I entice other rich bastards to be pedophiles with me so that I can blackmail them. Yeah, here's my list. I've got a nice handy Word document for you. There's no list. Speaking of Pam Bondi, if you don't know anything about her testimony in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee this week, well, your mental health is a little better than the rest of us who watched it. It was really disturbing. I'll just give you the very basic sort of thumbnail. She didn't answer a single question. She and RFK and Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, these people, when they go before these oversight committees, and an oversight committee is just what the name implies. It's a committee in Congress, and their job is to oversee departments of the executive branch. Because checks and balances, right? Basic middle school civics, which apparently they don't teach anymore. So it's a perfectly legitimate exercise, and in this case, the senators are expected to ask difficult questions of the head of an agency, in this case, the head of the Justice Department, the Attorney General, and the witness is expected to give answers. The witness is sworn in, just like you're sworn in court. You take an oath, and if you lie, it's perjury, and you go to jail. Now, Pam Bondi's strategy was to not lie by just refusing to answer literally every question. And she took it a step further. It was really strange. I watched the one of the feeds on YouTube or someplace. I forget where I was watching. But it kept the camera on her the whole time. While the senator was speaking for sometimes 5 minutes at a time, the camera stayed on her. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. I wonder why they're doing that. But it turned out to be really useful because I saw what she was doing. While they were talking, you know, senators, they like to hear the sounds of their own voices. While the senator was speaking, she was like frantic. She was looking around. She was looking back at her staff, sometimes talking with them. This is all while the senator is asking her a question. And mostly what she was doing, she was rifling through this big pile of papers and files she had in front of her. I don't think they were the Epstein files, but she had the Adam Schiff files, and she had the Amy Klobuchar files, and the Dick Durbin files, because she was like just frantically paging through all of these papers and all these files. And then when she finally spoke, she would look down to her papers and refer to her papers, because obviously she had a whole stack of opposition research. So instead of answering a question, like what happened to the $50,000 that the FBI agents, the undercover FBI agents, gave to Tom Homan in a paper sack? What happened to that $50,000? Do we still have it? Did it go back in the Treasury? Where is it? Does he still have it? Where is it? Well, I'm not going to answer that, Senator. Maybe if you loved your state as much as you hated the president, you'd be a better senator, and you wouldn't take money from a donor who also once met Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, she had this like file of information in front of her on every one of the senators. And every time they asked her a question, she would fire back with some ridiculous right-wing talk radio conspiracy theory about them. It was insane. You know the term jump the shark, right? The origin story of this, if you don't know, the TV show Happy Days back in the 70s had an episode where Fonzie jumped over a shark on water skis. And I can't credit the person because I don't remember the name. Some TV critic coined the phrase "jump the shark," meaning when a TV series gets so desperate for ratings that they do something kind of crazy that goes far beyond what would be expected. It's just gone nuts. It's just gone crazy on us. Well, the term "jump the shark," that's where it comes from. And it went on to mean any TV series that sort of took that turn. Oh, well, okay. We've been on the air for 10 years. It's our 11th year. We're getting desperate. We better do something wild and crazy. So that was "jump the shark." And now, since then, the expression has gone on to generally mean anybody or anything who just takes it to a brand new level. Kind of like I like to use cross the Rubicon or into the looking glass. But "jump the shark" is especially apropos, I think, because it implies insanity. The regime has jumped the shark. This testimony, if you watch, I mentioned Hegseth, RFK, Kash Patel, they all do it. Pam Bondi took it to a whole new level. Legitimate hearings in front of legitimate oversight committees, the way the government is supposed to work. One of the things I like about our government. There are things I like about our government. The idea of checks and balances and oversight committees, I like it. It's a good system. They've broken it in the sense of, there's another term that we're hearing a lot. We're broken. Like COVID broke us. That sense of the word broken. The regime has broken America. And the Pam Bondi testimony shone a very harsh, bright light on that idea. Yeah, we're broken. And the regime has jumped the shark. Armed thugs, ICE, Gestapo, terrorizing Americans. Talk about jumping the shark. Talk about crossing a Rubicon through the looking glass. We are just in a whole nother country right now. Incidents in Portland, in Chicago especially the apartment complex, this apartment building. Yeah, agents rappelled down from a Black Hawk helicopter onto the roof of an apartment building, and they ransacked the place. They knocked down every door, dragged families, men, women, elderly, children, out of their apartments, out into the street, some of them half naked, zip-tied, detained, arrested, some tossed into the now infamous unmarked vans. This is now the country we live in. This is now your country. You can retire the phrase, "This is not who we are. This is not America." Yeah, you can retire that phrase. That's long gone now. This is exactly who we are. This is exactly what this country is right now. Not to be fatalistic, not to surrender. No, just the opposite. We have to fight. We have to fight to defeat what's happening. I want to remind you of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution is being violated brazenly and violently every day, dozens of times, hundreds of times. And sometimes in the most stark, disturbing, violent, depraved ways you can imagine. Zip-tying half-naked children, dragging them out into the cold night air at 3 o'clock in the morning, being separated from their parents, some of whom were tossed in to the back of a van. Secret police, armed to the teeth, full military gear, masked, all of them with masks over their faces. This is who we are now. This is what we're fighting. Neighbors reported that federal agents used flashbang grenades to burst through the building, and several drones and helicopters were deployed. In Portland, they're instigating violence. What were a half a dozen peaceful protesters at the ICE processing center in Portland has now turned into hundreds of protesters out to demonstrate against the deployment of the National Guard. Lee Carter of Virginia posted, I thought, a useful little post. Quote, "The history of Nazis holding rallies in left-wing areas of Weimar Germany, instigating street fights, and then telling the press that only they could save Germany from the, quote, violent communists. It seems like an important thing for people to be studying right now." Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're instigating violence. They're creating confrontations. They're hoping that we'll take the bait. Now, yeah, we have to be very careful not to take the bait. But going out and showing your disdain is absolutely appropriate, and we should show up by the hundreds, by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands. They will try to turn it into a violent confrontation because it serves their ends. It suits them. So of the options we have, A is to stay home and ignore it. I think some people might say that. Well, don't take the bait. No, A is not an option. Coming out and showing your opposition is what we need to do. Once you're out there now, you have the option of being confrontational or peaceful. Well, maybe I put that poorly. You can confront and be peaceful. And that's where I am. That's where I've always been. I'm consistent with that. Be peaceful, but that doesn't mean just stay quiet in your designated area. No, disrupt. Be a pain in the ass, for sure. But the peaceful part has to be clear to everyone, especially all the cameras, whether it's professional news cameras or the thousands of phone cameras taking video, because the world is going to see. The world is watching, always. I'll take the advice one step further, and this is just me. I kind of think that you got to bring musicians and clowns and jugglers. I think you got to have, you have to, the camera has to know immediately from the first frame of video that you are joyful and peaceful. Sure, go ahead and shout at the federal thugs, call them every name in the book. But, put a song in your heart. Sing it. Laugh at them. Show that you're the last person on earth who's going to throw a punch or pull out a gun. Literally come in a clown outfit or whatever your favorite Halloween outfit is. Come as a rootin' tootin' cowboy. Come as a sexy French maid. It's Halloween season. Let's start early, okay? Get yourself out to Spirit Halloween or get creative in your own little craft room. And let's see those Halloween costumes. And the more harmless and whimsical, the better. Be clownish. Be sexy. Be playful. Bring lots of musicians with you. Make sure there's always a lot of music and dancing happening. And you still shout your slogans. You still tell them exactly what you think of them. You still carry your signs that call them every name in the book. Yeah. I'm not saying tone it down. I'm saying give it a vibe. Make sure every single person who sees that first frame of video knows who the violent people are in this situation. Because if you take their bait, if you get right in their face, you start pushing and shoving and screaming and being angry, that's what they want. That's exactly what they want. It's the Nazis of Weimar Germany instigating street fights and then telling the press that only they could save Germany from the violent communists. That's exactly what they're doing because they've never had an original idea in their life because they're big, dumb, stupid thugs. They're a bunch of clowns, crooks, and cranks. Every goddamn one of them. From the cosplaying militia fantasy boys straight from their mother's basement into Homeland Security fatigues, Kristi Noem hands them their bulletproof vest and their assault rifle and their face mask and says, go get them. Right down from the lowest one of those pathetic losers right up to the President of the United States. Which, by the way, I need to pick up on something we talked about last time. You know, for years now, many, many years, I hardly ever, if ever, say his name. I call him the Orange Menace, you know that. Or I just refer to the regime. The regime is doing this. The regime is doing that. Well, I think I want to alter that. I thought more about what we talked about last time. Stephen Miller and Russ Vought. They have just an enormous amount of power. Stephen Miller, of course, White House Deputy Chief of Staff. He's the racist in chief. All the violence coming from Homeland Security, the racism of the mass deportations, all of that side of the regime is coming straight from Stephen Miller. All the money stuff, Russ Vought, Director of Office of Management and Budget, who now is just literally the dictator of all things domestic when it comes to funding, personnel of the government. The director of OMB, just under the system, has a lot of power under a shutdown. But with the current regime, he's taking this to a whole nother level, also jumping the shark. And the Orange Menace, who I think I'm going to mention even less, because he's nothing but a big orange meat puppet. The media continues to cover him as though he's president. They hang on his every word. But his every word is nonsense. It's only what Miller and Vought put into his mouth. When he talks about defunding so-called Democrat cities or Democrat agencies, about firing federal workers permanently and using the shutdown as an excuse, any cockamamie idea he comes up with, he didn't come up with. It's only there because Miller and Vought, co-dictators, are in his ear. Miller's in one ear and Vought is in the other. So it's the Miller-Vought regime. We literally need to amend our language. So I'm asking every reporter, every journalist, every talking head, every influencer, every citizen, anybody around the kitchen table talking about this, don't talk about him, what he said, what he wants. The reporters, my God, well, what did the president say? What do you think the president is thinking? What do you think the president wants? Whether it's domestic policy or the mass deportations or the troops in the streets or the war in Gaza or the war in Ukraine. What do you think it's the president's peace plan. No, it's the Miller-Vought regime plan. In this case, designed by real estate developers Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. The fat, orange, comb-over meat puppet has no earthly clue. He mimics words put in his ear by the likes of Miller and Vought and RFK and Hegseth and Witkoff and Kushner and whatever batshit crazy right-wing TV he's watching for 7 hours a day, or what some insane right-wing dark internet troll has put in front of his permanently dilated eyeballs. The great orange meat puppet is addled, is ill, and is 100% incapable of having a cohesive thought. So stop talking about him like he has thoughts, like he has ideas. He's only capable of vomiting out the garbage fed to him by those in the Miller-Vought regime. And then, of course, he tosses in his own wild fantasies, delusions, and hallucinations. And this is not to diminish the danger of the regime. No, just the opposite. The clowns, crooks, and cranks are doing plenty of damage. They're conducting a mass program of extortion. Universities, city and state governments, corporations, media platforms, artists, government agencies, judges, public officials, all of them threatened with violence or financial ruin. And it's working. And if you think about it for a second, it makes total sense. Any institution, any of those I just mentioned, whether they're corporations or universities or law firms or media networks, whatever, if they rely on the bottom line, if they rely on profit for their very existence, then in a perverse way, it is in their interest to kowtow to the Miller-Vogt regime. If they're slapped with a lawsuit that any judge would toss out of court in 5 minutes, it's still in their financial, in their bottom line interest to surrender. We get advice from all the Timothy Snyders of the world, these experts in fascism, that say don't obey in advance, don't capitulate. Well, of course I agree, but the system is set up against these institutions. And this is exactly why I keep coming back to the fundamental idea that we have to eliminate the very concept of profit from our economic, political system. To the extent that system has worked up until now, I won't have that debate. I think there's one to be had, but I won't have it right now. The important thing is to understand we can't rely on it going forward. Look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me you believe that anything like the current Democratic Party, the only opposition party, could somehow save us from the damage caused by the Miller-Vogt regime and damages to come by passing sufficient regulatory legislation. Look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me that. Oh, if we just regulate, if we discourage this sort of behavior, if we create financial incentives, maybe tax breaks or preferred status for those who make the right decisions for society. Yeah, that'll work. Don't forget to put October 18th on your calendar. That's the next big global demonstration. Thousands of cities and towns all around the country and many others around the globe out in mass protest. We have to protest every day, of course, through strikes and boycotts, by being an active and intentional curator of information, making demands of your representatives at every level. Yeah, I hope your activism in support of the resistance is a daily part of your lifestyle now. But October 18th is also important. It's when we all get together on the streets with our signs, with our Halloween costumes, with our musical instruments, with our songs, and we show the world exactly what we think of the Miller-Vogt regime and their hand-picked orange comb-over meat puppet. All right, this episode can be heard on your favorite podcast platform or on the website charlespurcell.com. Follow on Blue Sky and Substack. Thanks to our home station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. All right, I love you. See you out there.